meeting to order. 7:00. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call. Myself, Chairman here. Bob Stewart is absent. Daniel Schoenberger is here. Sanders here. And David, our secretary, is here. So I'm going to wait to mark him absent. He's liable to float in yet.
Yeah.
So, other president, young lady, who are you?
Oh, I'm Linda Chrisman. I'm president of Safe Carter County, and I'm here because I'm interested in the sewage sludge resolution.
Okay. Justin Comfort, right? Okay, next thing on the agenda here is reorganization.
You were, they just did it, yesterday, set up, so that is your letter, you are going to forward the chairman, the board of county commissioners.
All right.
And you said they posted the dates, so I didn't say the second Tuesday.
Yeah, that's
For the year.
Yeah,
They did that at the commissioners meeting.
yeah.
Okay. Who do we want to appoint as vice chairman? We'll have two people sitting there present, so either one of you have to report.
Nominate Mr. Social.
I did formally accept the nomination. Accept it.
Okay, we have a second by Tanner, right? Is there any objections? If not, all in favor, say aye. Okay, passed, good. Right.
So, see, the
Vice chairman.
Okay. No, yeah, you're not going to. Anybody want the job?
Yeah, really.
Is the full board 5 or 7?
Hmm?
The full board. How many board?
Five.
5.
We're missing. We're missing a person. Gotta find one. So,
Bobby didn't come in, I just saw him doing it.
okay, now Mark and Chris. We should wait a couple seconds until we get through this.
You need an extra agenda, I guess, you know. See how one.
Yeah. Oh, no, I have one for him. Yeah.
I think you had one up there, yeah.
I'm good, thank you.
All right, Mike, President.
Oh, you're all cleaned up. That sounds nice. So you're on
So what we did so far, the commissioner reappointed me as chairman. We're putting Tanner in as vice chairman, and we're down to secretary. So I have a motion to have somebody appoint secretary.
I make a motion to appoint the body secretary.
I second that motion.
All in favor? Aye. That was very easy, David. You see that? Okay, approval of the minutes, the last minutes. You guys want time to go over them?
Make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Call for a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Right. Public comment. Who do we have for public comment? If we have, Mrs. Chrisman on the backside here, and Justin, you have something you wanna say? All right. Funding update there, David.
Nothing has changed since the last meeting. If you want me to go over it, I will, but basically it's the same thing. We just have to encumber $806,112.01 by December 31st, 2024.
All right, well, I don't really want, you say nothing's gonna change, but you told me the bond farm with Mr. Chauvin.
What is?
Yes, with Mr. Clay. You said, it might change the figures, or is he gonna do it for the same figure that we authorized last time?
Okay, so are we moving to that now, the bond fund survey? That's kind of what that is. I mean, it's not changing.
So the
I'm
question,
just asking you if it's gonna change the figure.
the question that Dick's asking is if acreage gonna change, or it's gonna change what we need to put on
The acreage shouldn't change based off of what we already have.
But I thought you told me it might change for the amount of money that he wants to satisfy it.
No, it would be the amount of money for the survey. You need to, okay, I'll read off what he said. In my research, I obtained from Mr. Bond the original survey plan from the now Verizon property, and in placing it in its proper position in the bond property, it is not the representative property on the GIS map due to the discrepancies in the Carter County GIS mapping location of the Verizon microwave tower property, which was used in delineation in the areas to be excluded from the preserved farm, which I have shown to Mr. Bodner. I will have to survey the location of the entire Verizon property to be able to set corners on the portion that will fall inside the preserved area in order to be 175.2 plus or minus acres. The Verizon property was shown excluding from the preserved area, which would not have to be surveyed, but now I have shown to Mr. Bond that it falls inside of it, and it will be quite a bit of additional field work to accomplish the survey and mark the boundary lines of the Verizon property. I estimate this original work will raise the proposed cost by $2,500. Basically, what he's saying is that he needs to do a change order, and the new cost of the overall survey is $12,475. He's still lower than what came in at the last one.
So I make a motion to approve the change order so we can proceed with the survey.
Second that motion.
So that'll change the figures up here slightly. Okay, Bob? All in favor of the motion? Aye. So it passes. And when did he give you an indication he could have this completed?
Well, yeah, 90 days from, when I issued the notice to proceed. I issued that. Let's say about, probably about 75 days left. Yeah, I would say it was about 2 weeks ago. So then he came into my office last week to talk about this, and we started looking at it.
Go ahead.
So on the remaining funding on the back of the page, just to to help me understand. The state, it says state 806,000 needs to be encumbered by the other 24. And the county is that 903,000 is part of the 1 million the county committed. So is the county money, the match, based on what you can get done between now and the end of 24? So will you be using all that 900,000 or you don't know yet?
Well,
We
all
really
depends, all
don't.
depends what we do here tonight, so. Let's just run it real quick, so. Come on, here's the calculator. So 1700, 7107, 592, and let's just throw a rough figure of 5 in there.
For what?
What's that?
Your rough figure of
$5,000 an acre. We need to pick 341 acres of farmland tonight to use all of that, the 806 and the 903, 1.719. So we're gonna,
I see what you're trying to say, okay.
rough idea, more or less, surveys come in like we did for the farm, we're gonna do less, if they, but we're not gonna know what they're gonna come in at until we get people committed. What's that number? So 340, we're gonna pick 341 out tonight, right? Approximately, more or less.
Already
And
have
we'll-
175 is part of it, isn't
What's that?
it?
What
Oh,
one's
probably
it?
some.
No,
the
it's
money,
not part
money
of
for
it.
Kenny's farm is up.
For Kenny's farm is already out.
All right.
It's already on the side there.
But anyway, I didn't mean to jump ahead.
So,
That's all right.
no,
No, that's all right, it's a good question.
the thing to remember though is that the county funds have to, the county funds, we don't have to spend another 2 years. The state funds, we do.
What's left of
So
that,
that's why,
that 806 is part of this year's state match.
yeah, and so that's why we
And
have to
it has
make
to be-
sure that we use that 80, we get that
We have to get
806.
that- We have to get that 806 almost hammered out before the end of this year, so we can move on to next
Right.
So that I don't have to worry about coming up on the encumbering thing.
And I know you want the right balance of match, but probably technically, if you need more county funds, you can go back to the commissioners.
year. And I like that idea, let's work with what we have here.
Right, right.
Let's get these 4 or 5 in here right now and get the process started.
Right.
Because, they have to give us their good faith deposit, which they get back. So we get a number, where we're at, so.
Awesome.
Because it gives us a rough idea of the acres, like you said, but then that gives David a headache to figure out everything for the, incidentals and everything has to be collected from the property that's gonna be selected. And naturally, that money, when they put up their bond there, will be returned to that.
Providing they accept our offer.
Right,
Yeah, the $1,000 they get back. The
They get back.
incidental is money that we get back toward the county.
Right,
From that other funds.
so everybody understands that, okay? All right. So you're good with the bond farm survey, gonna be done by Mr.
Mr. Clay.
Mr. Clay. So you're gonna move forward as soon as you get that in, so we get that
Yeah,
thing
we
rectified.
approved this change order, so you
Yeah.
can call him tomorrow morning and say, "Board approved the change order, go ahead."
Yeah, well, I think I have to send it to the board of commissioners because of the way the money works.
Whatever.
Yeah, that's what they're like, but
We have a meeting
pretty much
Thursday
that,
morning.
he's still working on it to approve
Your meeting's Thursday morning, commissioners, right?
it. Yeah, but it won't get approved till next Thursday, and they may just ratify it.
Okay.
Okay, whatever they decide to do, I'll talk to them, but yeah. he's still
So
working.
everyone's satisfied with the statements on the bond farm? All right. Okay, move on to the farm rankings. I just gave you Tom, this is what we came up with the rankings. Gave a copy to, David there, he wants a copy of the figures that we put down for the incidentals all the way down too, so I'll have to make copies of that and I'll mail it to you. As soon as I make the copies up, or unless, I don't wanna send the whole file back up there, I can just take the first 2 or 3 pages with the ranking, the leisure and
Yeah,
everything.
I just need all the numbers, I need
Well,
all the.
I'll just give you the legal rankings and the other figures, and then you can go from there. So, the way it came out, the top 5, I don't have the acreage down here, but Mrs. Steele out in Mahoning Valley, she was the highest one, 68.82. The Miller Farm over in Franklin Township was second, 64.56. Kunfer Farm, 62.69, Engelhart, 62.58, and Eckhart would be the last one for the 5, but I'm positive just on the first 2 or 3, you're gonna have the total acreage you need. I should have written the acreage behind it.
Sure.
But did you write them down?
Hold on, I could, let me do that, okay, so, Steel, 64 acres,
All right, 64,
Miller, 131,
131,
Comfort, 35, Stegenhard, 49, Hackett, 79,
who, Eckhart?
79 for Hackett.
All right, so there you're at 715, there you're at 357 acres. On the top 5, so, what had you mentioned before, Bobby?
341.
All right, so you're in the ballpark with the first 5, okay? And it all depends, when you do the paperwork and contact these people, if, to do their appraisals, if they're gonna go along with the offer on the appraisals. So we might have to include the next 1 or 2 farms, or whatever we do, to come up with our total acreage, right?
Yeah, we could do that after.
After you get your appraisals back. So before that, it's just what it is. Anybody have any questions on it?
So, I guess we need a motion to approve the ranking. Oh, okay.
But no, anybody can make the motion, if somebody wanna make the motion.
I make a motion to approve the rankings as presented.
And then we'll wait naturally until we get the appraisal done. Does anybody have any
The
objections?
motion was to approve the rankings as presented.
I'll wait, I'm getting there. Okay, settle down. So, everybody can see this, anybody have any objections? If not, approval of the second? The motion and the second?
Second on the motion to approve the rankings.
Well, that's what we're talking about.
Then we need a motion to accept the top 5.
So we have the motion.
I make the motion to
Accept the top
accept the
five.
rankings.
All right, and you're gonna be second on it?
Okay, so who,
Wait a minute,
you did the first for the top 5, right?
hold on, we didn't do the top 5.
We didn't do
made
the
a
top.
motion to accept the rankings.
Okay, and
Right.
that was
As presented.
Bob and Dan.
Yeah,
Right.
all right.
Tanner.
Everybody agree? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now I make a motion to accept the top 5 to present, to mail the letters out that we have accepted in the program and request $1,000 donation.
I second that motion.
All right, everybody in favor, and anybody have an objection to what was just said? If not, I'm asking for a favorable vote. Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. How you doing, Chris?
I apologize for being late, had to be in Summit Hill at
Oh,
seven.
that's all, that's fine.
I didn't speak.
And then, because would the board be willing to, so that I don't have to drag you guys in here next meeting, authorize for those top five, pending that they pay their $1,000 deposit, to order appraisals from Andreas Appraisals, so we can do
When seeing how there's five, I think we should solicit the appraisals. I mean, at $10,000 a piece, that's $50,000. So I suggest that you solicit appraisals, qualified appraisals for the farmland preservation program. And then after you have solicited the proposals, get the authorization and go with the least expensive, qualified.
that. Okay, so.
All right, so Bob wants to make a motion that we put it out to the public for the best observation for the top five rankings. Does anybody have an objection to that? All right,
It's Harvey, would you want to include a time frame so that it's
Oh,
not?
yeah, they have to have them done in 90 days.
Yeah,
90 days from the award of the bid. Because 90 days, I mean, we're gonna, what do the guidelines say after we mail this letter out to get their $1,000 deposit? How many days do they have to get the deposit back in? So you can simultaneously do both. You can solicit the bids. You can solicit the bids, and you can also send a letter out to these people.
well, they'll be informed when they pick the top five. That's part of it.
We have picked the top
We
one.
picked them, but that's the problem with, not a problem, but that's for him to inform the top five and the procedure moving forward in the bylaw. So the $1,000 deposit is for the appraisal, like you're saying, Bobby, but but you're saying you want to put out the public bid.
We want him to solicit, yes, he has to do an RFP for
Yeah,
qualified,
that's what you're saying,
qualified appraisers.
And at that time, the appraisals come back. If they accept the appraisals, fine, and if not, if they reject it, they're allowed to have a second appraisal done. At their cost,
expense,
at their
yes.
cost,
That's what it's,
okay?
so, do we want to?
So what's your
we
point,
need
what's
to-
your point there?
Okay,
So, come on.
I know Dr. Degenhardt's ready to send his check, and what about these other people? Have you been in contact with them, and
I spoke with every one of them.
Okay,
Mrs. Steele, the Millers, Comfort, Engelhardt, and I didn't speak personally with Mrs. Eckhart,
okay.
but
All
I
right,
don't
so-
think there's gonna be
Okay,
an
so
eye.
simultaneously, we can send a letter out saying that they've been chosen.
That's
They need
up-
$1,000
that's up to
deposit.
David.
At the same time, you're gonna solicit the qualified appraisers, right? And then, what are we gonna give them 30 days to get their bid back. 30 days, you know.
yeah,
Get the
but
bid.
really, I can't put that out till I get that $1,000, so I get that $1,000, because they're gonna ask
You're exactly
where
right.
the properties are and how it's,
Right.
they're gonna need that information up front. to
So
get
then
it.
that's gonna move us out 120 days. So if you give them 30 days to get their $1,000 in, I'm saying, I don't understand why if you're soliciting bids, this is what you do, you solicit the bids, you know, you solicit the bid, the RFP for 64 acres on the Steels, 131 on the Millers, 35 on the Comforts, 49 on Degenhardt, and 79 on Eccles, right? They should be able to submit a bid for that, you know, it's not rocket science.
Yeah, well, usually.
Depending on their workload, that's where you're gonna run into problems with these companies. They might have a heavy workload.
Well, one thing you could do is a phone call to these people first. You know, and a follow-up letter could say, as soon as you can get to 1,000, you can proceed with this. You know, you could do it You can proceed
I
with
can't
that.
remember what I put on the letter on top of my head.
No, well,
I don't know how many days they have to get
Yeah,
that
yeah,
$1,000.
I understand, but some, I don't know their financial, not all of them have $1,000 laying around, maybe,
no.
just as a heads up.
That's the other side of that question. What's the bid limit, minimum bid?
Well, again, this is a service, so for services, you actually don't have to go out to bid. I think
Well, you
your
can do it on-
logic is practical because.
You can do an RFP. I mean,
Right, and you don't even have to do that, again, because this is a service,
Right.
not a product. But I, if I could, I would, and I apologize, you guys are right. I would say you really need to ensure the 5 properties, because they have to be in your request for bids. Right, the 5 specific, because, surveying 300 acres compared to maybe 700 acres, right, is gonna change it. And I understand, right, we wanna move as fast as possible, but it's actually gonna cost us time if we don't wait till Dave has the 5 $1,000 certified checks, in hand.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Very good
Why
point.
couldn't Dave's letter though state, if the procedure is, you tell these individuals, you have 30 days, but if you get us the check sooner,
Yeah.
we'll move sooner. So if
Yeah.
you get all 5 checks in before the 30 days, then you can go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many qualify by state standards for this appraisal? How many are there close by, like Lehigh, Northampton, Luzerne, Schuylkill? How many qualified surveyors are there? Are we going to Lancaster, Penn State, or something else?
I don't know, we've
They're
always,
they're all qualified, they do it with banks all the time.
Yeah, but
They have to be state certified.
They have to be qualified for our program.
Keep it in county. That's what we used to do. It had to be kept
Who
in
did the
county.
bond fund?
Huh?
Who did the bond fund? Persons used to do most of the stuff. but-
No.
we
no,
always hired and Grant Appraisal to do our appraisal. The first one I ever did, we did with Parsons, and then you guys decided that you wanted to use them Grant Appraisal for every farm.
Right.
I mean, if I'm gonna put out an RFP, I figure we just put it out to whoever wants.
Let them bid on it.
Yeah, I mean, if they're 10 grand a
Very
piece,
few
if they're
locally.
10 grand a piece, this is
Very
10
few
grand,
locally.
this is 10 grand of county money that's gonna be
No.
sitting out there until we
But
get
the
it
rest,
reimbursed.
really fair, common, Perkins was off the wall, if I have to say so. He lowballed everybody. So. But again,
So, we have the motion to solicit, do an RFP on qualified survey appraisers and move forward. After we have our $1,000 deposits, that they can move forward 90 days.
Excuse me.
90 days, we're looking at 30 days now, that's July. Looking at another 90 days, that's August, September, October. We're not gonna be able to do anything until November.
Right.
you're pretty well online there, so.
But then, once I have that appraisal, we lock them in with that, then it pretty much,
Then it's done deal.
yeah.
So. All right, let's have a motion on what Bob brought up.
I second
Okay, you second it. Anybody object? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
it.
Not to write that all out, you can do that. Okay. Anybody else want to bring any points up on that before we move on? No? What?
Let's amend that motion on the first 5. That we move to, if somebody backs out in the first 5, we want the 6th one
The
to
alternate.
jump right in.
Okay, yeah, that will work.
We're going,
Yep.
All in favor of that? All right, you have that all in your pouch there, David, right? All right, the next thing on the new business. Appointment of Agricultural Land Preservation Board member to the Carbon County Open Space Advisory Board.
is simple, I make a motion, since they put all this work into the bond issue and everything, I make a motion, we appoint, Richard Fetter to our space on the Carbon County Open Space Advisory Board.
Who second? Motion by Bob, second by Danny. Okay. Now, that'll be a permanent appointment there, right, Chris?
Until you no longer are able to serve or they
Correct.
vote you out.
Now, what I'm gonna bring up here, if you're gonna appoint me as the permanent member, I also want an alternate member in case there's a conflict of interest. So, we ought to have an alternate. Is that a fair observation?
I don't think you'll be able to do that. I think you'll simply have to abstain.
And this is why 1, 2, 3 are eventually gonna be on this list. We can't be on that board. You're already in.
And there are 2 alternates, the way I have the resolution for the commissioners here. He became the 7th board member for the Open Space Board, and then there's 2 alternates on that board. So that's the way it was set up.
Do you have a list of everybody that's on that now, or?
I thought you just had 9. Whatever.
Well, it's 6 plus 1 plus 2, is how I say it.
You do have 9. You do have 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a commissioner on?
No, because you're an advisory board, it's just like there isn't one here, right? I just hang out with you guys, right? It's yeah.
And in addition to that, if I can, then you're asking these questions. Myself with the Wildlands Conservancy, along with Ann Hutchinson with the Natural Lands, and Jeannie Ortiz from Audubon Mid-Atlantic, we've been this conservation consortium that has been advising the commissioners. So the commissioners signed a letter requesting our advice and guidance, which we're doing. And the letter was because we're doing this pro bono to the county, and we're getting funding from other sources, so we had to show they were officially requesting us. They also, at the last commissioners meeting, appointed Dan Kunkel also as an advisor. So Dan was the chairman of my public campaign committee, and we did the campaign last year. So there's really 3 conservation organizations, in which I'm in Wildlands, and Dan, working with the Open Space Board to get it set up and guide them through the initial setup of it, how it's gonna operate. I don't know, do you know if the letters went out yet to these folks?
I recall signing some, but again, I don't know if they're in the mail.
Okay. And we're hoping to, I know Ellie said to give her a week or 2, and we're having a planning meeting the end of June, and we'll be ready sometime in July or August to be working with Dave and Jason I've got a meeting set up to start the process. I don't know if there's any questions on that.
Do we have to have David send a letter to the commissioners?
Yeah, I
That's
was
fine.
wondering,
Yeah, I can. Yeah,
All right,
if they needed it in.
yes. Do you have anything else you want to interject here, Dennis?
No, sir.
Sure. Come on, you know my name. Anyhow. Anybody else have any comments on the board? I'd like if you'd interject here a little bit, Chris. The farmland preservation is going to be one aspect, but we also have the open space, like Dennis said, and the clean water.
Sure.
What is going to be the procedure? Didn't they set up the procedure yet to divvy out money to the different aspects?
You and your fellow board members are gonna help advise us on how to best utilize those funds and maximize those resources. So we're leaving it up to you all with the advisors we appointed, Dennis and his team and Dan, to help determine how we're gonna move ahead in regards to where those resources are applied.
Okay, so this is my one thing that I was really concerned with.
Yeah.
And it said water, land,
Farms, water, land.
and water.
Water is about,
Yep. And I don't know, so
Go on.
this is where, this is, and I'm gonna kick Dick every time I tell him that. I have no problem if the Highland Water Authority wants money to preserve some land around their reservoirs. Webby Borough has wells. Panther Valley and Escahone are doing them. I think they have some reservoirs on the Broad Mountain there, right? But I don't wanna see a penny of our money go to Bethel or the Hazen City Authority. Not a penny.
I don't think we do for it.
Well, no.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Hey, oh, yeah.
It's the upper parts, yeah.
But, I mean, down on your
Jump
end,
in on
down on your end, the Bethlehem City Authority has 10,000 acres. The Hazen City Authority has, between Packer, Lausanne, and Lehigh, there's 3,500 acres there. I mean, at least Bethlehem City Authority sends 20 grand a year.
Oh, right, yeah.
We get, this is what we get from Hazel, right
Right.
here.
so there's no in lieu of taxes.
There's
They
no
give
little
nothing,
taxes
right.
there, and hopefully, when we get the formula from the county that they use to distribute the money, I have our school district on board with us, which Burke, Packer, Lehigh, and Los Angeles, Challenger tax exempt authority, because they're taking all the wood, they make a $400,000 payment to the city of Hazleton every year, so they have new cops on the street.
As I understand this whole process, because there was already a meeting with the commissioners and the bond council and the budget person, I forget who else was at the meeting. There's that $10 million, $1 million was already given in January for the ag. As far as the mix of how, I think we need to leave that flexible. There's not gonna be a designated ag
Yeah,
has
and I
4
agree
billion
with
and
that.
open space
And I
has
agree
6.
with that 100%.
And so,
But I
and
don't,
how, but wait, I'll get to that point. But how it will be borrowed and the way it will be is still yet to be determined. There was idea of 3, 3, and 4, and there's all sorts of laws with the IRS.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can't draw down the money. But I think for the commissioner, and we'll get with you on this, at one of the initial meetings, I think we're going to need to know kind of the legal parameters, because this new board, so we don't go off on rabbit trails, needs to understand the purpose of the program.
Right.
And the language in not the legislation, but what was approved by the voters is the language. And, the new board is going to have to set up an application process and, or a criteria process. I just brought this with me. This is Chester County's program. This is their Preservation Partnership Grant Program, how they spend their bond money, that municipalities and land trusts and conservancies are eligible for the funding for land acquisition. Now, they include some open space and trails, or passive type parks. So that's still, all this has to be determined by this board making a recommendation to the commissioners as to the parameters. But just for example, because I used to work for DCNR and I used to be the grants guy. So, and I worked with Monroe County and other counties who had programs like this. And I think we're all hoping that 10 million is going to be 30 million.
oh, I understand.
You know,
Completely,
and
yes.
so, but here's the kicker with that, is if we're going to say that an applicant has to seek matching funds, and let's say for DCNR that has an acquisition program and could have $40 to $60 million a year to award. Well, the DCNR program has all this criteria that they have to follow. So it's almost like if we expect an applicant to apply for matching funds or to leverage funds, which we want them to do, they're gonna have to get funding, they're gonna have to hit the target on that criteria. So there's gonna be standard criteria that will apply across the board on every application. And there'll be a ranking process, and, similar to what you guys do here. So, yeah, I don't know what's gonna come in, or who's gonna apply. That's all yet to be
determined.
Well, like I said, I mean, what I just said there, it has to benefit the people of
Harbin County.
Not the people
Right.
in Bethlehem, not the people in Hazel.
Well, we originally had proposed that, Dan and you
Right.
proposed that.
When you say, and I agree with that and understand that, but it's
Yeah.
protecting water sources and water resources. So the fact that, we as Wildlands just did an amazing, weather leader,
Yeah,
28.
and I want to talk to you about that.
2,800
because I have 40 acres in the family that we want to, it's on the south end of town where the Black Creek turns and goes east.
Right,
There's 40 acres that we need to talk about.
right. There's a whole bunch of things that go on, like, we're receiving funding from other sources, and they have what they call focus areas. So all these universities have done all this research to say, these are the highest conservation value lands. And don't get mad at me by me saying this, it kind of doesn't matter who owns it, who's gonna get the money. The question is, can we permanently, in perpetuity, preserve that piece of real estate so it can never be developed? That's the primary purpose of this program. So I understand it's, there's gonna be like, well, so-and-so is gonna get X number of dollars or something. It's looked at, what is the highest conservation value land to protect the water resources. We as Wildlands have done over 50,000 acres in the headwaters of the Lehigh, all the way up into Lackawanna County, because we're trying to preserve the headwaters of that river. And so, all sorts of different people got funding that we were able to put together and get grant money to do. So, we're just gonna have to wait and see how all this rolls out.
At the end of the day, 3 individuals or 2 individuals decide ultimately where that money goes. Because it's an advisory board, recommendation is made to the Board of Commissioners, and at least 2 have to say, yes, in our opinion, this is in the best interest of the citizens of Carbon County, who are the force majeure behind this.
But at this point, this documentation that he's showing you hasn't been completed by your group yet, so.
By your
Get
group.
started, right.
Pardon?
Your group,
We haven't started.
right.
But in essence,
Right.
Dan and Dennis here would be the driving force to set up the entire program, the criteria that has to be met.
Well, he's gonna help with
Advise.
Dan
Right.
advise what he believes is the best way to proceed,
best way to
based
proceed.
on best practice, past practice, such as Chester County and others.
But that hasn't been done yet.
No. But again, valuable input, it's gonna be an issue.
I'll get some of that then.
I mean, I'm sure what you're saying, overall, we want the money spread around. We want it even geographically spread around, but it's gonna come down to, just like with your farms, there's a checklist.
Right.
And they either meet the soils and meet the qualifications, or they don't.
Exactly.
And so there's gonna be a checklist. So,
Anybody have any more comments on it?
One comment, just going back to the last meeting, so, we were talking about having, Maria from Northampton County.
Oh,
come in.
yes, I was gonna bring that up next. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
and, I did call her to talk to her about the whole workshop thing, and she was under the impression that the workshop was gonna be about the open space, not about so much conservation plan stuff.
I think you have that mixed up a little bit. I talked to Maria today, and what her and I had discussed was bringing her up here to help circumvent ASA and the conservation plans, which the NRCS is giving us a 3-year time frame to look at it. And she already has approval from the state board, to do the conservation plans and the ASA without bothering with NRCS. And I think you were tipped off in a different direction, the conversation, and she said, no, you're right, Mr. Frederick, this is what we spoke about. But she was saying to me that you were leading your conversation towards this advisory board, the open space board, which I didn't even
I
bring up
got a
there.
completely different answer from her, Dick. I don't know if we talked to the same person then, because,
Well,
I mean, we
Maria,
talked about this, but when she mentioned workshop, she was talking about open space.
well,
That's what she
even,
told me.
well,
So why don't
Maybe
you
so,
both
but-
get on the phone with Maria
Yeah.
and figure it
We
out?
could,
Just
yeah.
set up a conference call,
because I was
knock
talking
it out.
about something totally different than what you brought up. But I was saying that we could bring her up here, depending on the board having an open date and making sure that she could attend. But do we have to advertise a workshop meeting?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Right.
according to what she said, if she's talking about conservation plans.
It's like an information session.
Yeah, it's not
But
something.
what if the public shows up and has different questions to be asked? That's where I would be thinking you'd have to advertise because of the public.
It would have to be a formal meeting. If it's an information session, like the Board of Commissioners, we have information sessions all the time. It's
All
not a public meeting. It's
Yeah.
not establishing an agenda or anything.
Yeah, we're not.
Is this having Maria in to work with the board, or do you want the general public here or other farmers?
I don't really care if it's just a board session or if it's the general public. You know, sometimes they come up with a hell of a good ideas, you know?
Or we should have the informational thing first,
Well,
I would think.
I'm
To
asking
agree
here.
on what you want to
We
do.
didn't
you know.
formally, when the Nature and Commerce Committee has had municipal education programs, and they're just advertised, you know, and set up.
I think it's
Commissioners
advertised
coordinate
as
the
workshop.
room
Yeah,
and.
I mean, we're not gonna vote on anything, as long as we don't vote on anything, it don't matter.
No, if that's, I'm not up on all the I's and E's. What we wanna do, but if that's the case, if you board members here would wanna talk to her to see how she went around this, and it's totally legal with Steph Zimmerman out in Harrisburg, that we don't have to kiss NRCS butt anymore and get told, come back in 3 years. And it's like Chris said to him, I can get a master's degree in 2 years from the university. So, I think I heard that right.
Yeah, it's, it might be 3 for me,
I'm
but
getting
2 for
old.
the average
I'm getting
person.
old, I want to be on the
Yeah.
ball there. But let's get her up here and have her explain how she did this to help our board out.
Yeah, I mean, I
I mean,
did
you
talk to her
have no
about that, she did
objection?
explain to me how she does it. So I am aware how she does it. But if you guys would want her to come up, I mean, I could definitely call her and ask her to come up then. Or meet with the board. Okay?
So do we
Very good.
need to do this, how far ahead do we need to do this?
You
before
gotta
we
find
get-
out from her first if she has an open date, but she gave me the date, the 21st and 23rd of this month. She had open, I don't know if those 2 dates are still open.
Well, I told her right now, the 15th is definitely not it because I'm slammed this week. I could double check with the 21st, but then again, I want to see, since this doesn't have to be an advertised workshop, that you want to come during the day, that you want to come at night. it's up
Most
to
of the
her.
guys here, we work during the day or we farm during the day. And I had said to her, she could come up in the evening.
Yeah, that'd be great. If she
And
could-
you work too.
Oh,
Well,
okay. I'll see.
so we
Come up
try and have an
at
evening
night.
date and the place where we're gonna have it.
Mhm.
Okay? If everybody's in favor of that,
If you guys are looking for a place to get stuff, you don't have to look too far. How much range is that?
it's about 3 inches.
4.2.
Go ahead, David, you wanna call her or shall I call her?
What did you say?
Why don't we both get on a phone call with that? That way then we make sure we get good with it.
How are we gonna do that?
I could probably set up a conference call somehow with the phone, I'll give you a phone number to call into that.
All right.
Or what happens is, again, you're in the new phones, we're getting ready to go to the new phones here this week,
Yeah, I
next
didn't
week.
even learn that yet.
Oh, you're in the old phones.
I know that
All right.
there were phones up there, but I didn't know if those are ours or what.
All right. If not, in the commissioner's office, we have a call-in conference call number if you need it. You know, 1-800
Yeah,
conference
we'll
call.
do something
Yeah.
next week with that. We'll set up some kind
All
of-
right, get that set up and
The
let's,
22nd is not.
What's that?
I don't know. The 22nd, this, if you're gonna, we're gonna do it.
let him find out what she has for open dates for
Yeah.
us. And then we'll all try and get together for an evening meeting, Bobby.
Raining, leaving that's raining.
Yeah, see, I can rather predict the weather and do that.
Last
yeah.
month, that'd be hard to do.
You have a crystal ball? All right, so you take care of that, David, and get a hold of me, and then we'll have that conversation with her, see what we can come up with. So we can get rid of NRCS. Steph Zimmerman says it's fine to her, let's go that route. Let's go that route. And then we can also discuss with her an EIP, you know, with the fundings, that we could get additional funds that she was talking about some too, so. Well, when we get everybody together, then we'll discuss it. All right? Okay. All right, next thing on the list is Mrs. Christmas. Comments regarding Save Carbon County's resolution regulating the use of sewage sludge being used as fertilizer. Turn the table over to you.
Okay, just a little background. In 1982, the Right to Farm Act was passed. You probably know about it. And the reason it was passed was to protect farmers from being sued by their neighbors or from local governments declaring plowing early in the morning a violation. So the Right to Farm Act was a good law, and it had a couple of exceptions. Well, it said that local governments could not regulate farms, and residents could not sue farms for normal farm activities. And it had a couple of exceptions. One was if the farm activity was threatening a stream, to pollute a stream, or threatening to pollute a well, or threatening the health and welfare of other residents. So that's a good, reasonable law. And then in 1997, the Nutrient Management Act was passed. Again, a reasonable law, lots of good environmental protections in that law, and not a burden on farmers, I don't believe. But then in 2002, big farms decided to get involved. And they thought, hey, this is a great deal. We can't be sued, we can't be regulated. And they put in an amendment that said that extreme farm activities were now coming under these protections. Extreme farm activities are things like, if a farm has been in business for 10 years, the law allows them to decide, hey, I'm gonna have an industrial pig farm with big lagoons full of pig manure, or I'm gonna have a stockyard, which they call a CAFO. And there's nothing that my neighbors can do about it, and there's nothing that the local government can do about it. Included in this extreme farm activities that are now protected from lawsuits and from regulation is the application of sewage sludge. So if a farmer is using sewage sludge on their field, and it threatens a stream, or it threatens a well, or it threatens the health and welfare of nearby residents, there's nothing anybody can do about it. The local residents will not have a day in court to complain. They will not be able to go to their local government to say, hey, this is unfair. Can you do something about it? So So that's the situation we're at right now. Now, what we're trying to do with this regulation is, we would like to get the support of the municipalities of Carbon County. Once we have that support in the form of adopting this resolution, once we have that support, we will take that support, and the first thing we'll do is we'll go to Allentown and Bethlehem and we'll produce this stuff, and we'll try to embarrass them into keeping it on their side of the Blue Mountain. If they like it, they can keep it over there. They send over here the lowest grade sewage sludge. There are 3 grades of sewage sludge. So they send the type of sewage sludge that's least treated. It's, you know, it's cheap.
Class 2.
Yeah. Class B, I think. Yeah, class 2. So, what, we'll try to embarrass them into, not dumping on Carbon County. They have a water treatment plant problem. They have a sewage treatment plant problem. They can't get rid of the solid waste. They can get rid of the water because they can treat it and then they can take it to a river or an ocean, and that's permitted to be done. But that leaves them with this solid waste, which is human excrement, plus everything else that's produced and flushed down the toilet or down the drain in Bethlehem and Allentown. And that includes stuff like, formaldehyde from a funeral home, benzene and oil and gasoline from gas stations. Plus, both of those towns have huge hospitals, so you're going to get a lot of antibiotics, and even radioactive chemo treatments are going to go down the drain. All of that ends up in the solid waste because the water is clean. So everything comes out of the water and stays in the solid waste. It includes heavy metals, arsenic, and something called PFAs. PFAs are forever chemicals. They don't break down in the environment. They don't break down in the human body. So they accumulate and they cause cancer. They cause they're an endocrine disruptor, which means fertility problems in women and men, brain cancers, and if you work with the sewage sludge, you're very likely to have respiratory problems because it has, well, from day to day it's going to vary because what you flush down the toilet varies every day. So you never know what's in it, but you're going to put it on a field, which means you're going to put it into the food chain. Now in Maine, they had a problem. They had a lot of these PFAs were accumulating, and for a time, they had a big swath of Maine. You could hunt deer, but you couldn't eat them because the deer were grazing on grass that was growing in a field that had sewage sludge. And they had farmers that had their farms shut down because, like a dairy farm, shut down because their milk had too much PFAs. Now, our state doesn't test for PFAs right now, but I can promise you they're going to start because the EPA has just adopted a standard for drinking water. If they've adopted a standard for drinking water, they're going to start looking at sewage sludge as well. The standard for drinking water is almost 0, so you know this is toxic stuff. If it's taken out of the drinking water, it's staying in the sewage sludge. Everything that comes out of the sewage water stays in the sewage sludge. Now, I also want to add, since you're all farmers, I'm not anti-farmer, and our group is not anti-farmer. My husband and I live on a preserved farm that has been in his family for over 100 years. And he's been a big proponent of the preservation program. But we think that farmers are going to be the ones that are most hurt from this. It's like in Illinois and in Maine, farmers were put out of business because they began testing for PFAs. And I believe that's going to happen in Pennsylvania. And the thing is, once you've done this to a field, you can't take it back. That, those forever chemicals are staying there. So what you have is you're poisoning a field, you're taking it out of farmland use if they start testing for PFAS. So, we think farmers and farm families that are working with this stuff, their health is going to be impacted the most, and their farms are going to be impacted the most. And you have the resolution, and I know some townships have changed the language. I think Packer Township did. And that's fine. You might want to recommend some changes to the language. But the purpose of it is to say we want local governments to be able to return to their original right to farmland, which was a reasonable law. We're not saying don't use sewage sludge. We're saying you have to have, if you're endangering your neighbors or a stream or a well, we want to have an exception there, just like the original right to farmland. And I think that's a very reasonable position. It's not anti-farming. So I hope that you'll recommend passing the resolution, the commissioners will pass the resolution. And if you, again, if you want to make some changes to the language, please do.
Our hands are being tied. I have brought this up many a time, Chris at the board here, and with Steph Zimmerman, the Wolfgang at the time was in charge of Harrisburg. They don't want to touch anything. They don't want to discuss it. Steph told me the last time I talked to her, this is a hot potato, just put it to the side. That was from the head person at Harrisburg. Because for farmland preservation, I'm talking.
Okay.
So it puts me in a position as having Dennis and Dan Kunkel push this resolution for me and getting it passed here for clean water, open space and all that crap. It puts me in a hell of a position as being chairman of this board, but the people are saying something, well, now wait a minute, Mr. Feder, you push for clean water and all this crap, and here you're letting these farms put sewage sludge on their farms. But the state approved putting it on, just like with Mr. Comforter, their farm is using it also, and you fought with, East Penn? And since the state approved it, they couldn't stop it. Well, that puts me in a hell of a position, because every time somebody calls about the hot potato, yes, I'm for clean water and this and that, well, you're chairman of the board, why can't you stop it? Well, I have no authority to stop it. And I brought this up to Chris many a time. So, our hands are really tied as far as the board here is concerned with this.
We can support your resolution, but
We can't do it.
we can't do it.
I
And it's the same
understand
thing, and Packer lost, and Packer lost 15 or 20 years ago, right? And I could have went down there to see East Penn and told them, hey, save your money, right? But, well, it wasn't my spot, right? Now, you went to the Lehigh meeting, and I supported you up to a point, right? And the next day I went home, and the next night we had our meeting, and you brought me that Penn State paper. Did you read that Penn State paper?
Yes.
Did you read it to the last paragraph?
Yes, I think so.
And what did the last paragraph say?
Well, I don't remember what the
I
last.
can tell you what it says, and I wish I would have brought it with me. It said, there is a concern of the things that are happening with the forever chemicals, and more university study is needed at this time before they can take a stand on which way to support or deny it. Because there is such controversy. And until a land-grant university, Cornell, Penn State, University of North Carolina or South Carolina, gets involved, and it's the same thing with these nuts over in Europe, right? Oh, we don't want Roundup Ready corn, right? Them people are nuts over it. When a university study here in the United States says that we can't feed Roundup Ready corn to animals because it's going to screw us up, I don't want to hear nothing about it, right? And the same thing with this thing here. Until Penn State studies it, am I right, Justin? You went out there, and you know what their stance is on it.
I did some research. The day I went, you know, Lehigh's meeting was Monday, ours was Tuesday. I spent all day Tuesday on looking for other things, right? There is so much stuff out there, and everybody's here eating a bag of McDonald's fries at some time in their life. Well, guess what? That is the biggest violator. And how many times did you eat it when you were a kid, right? This is in, one study in Consumer Reports said up to 75% of the people that have a blood test specifically for this are gonna come back positive.
Right, it's
It's
everywhere.
already there, right? So to say that the sewage is to say it's in all stuff, and you said about the people working in a sewage treatment plant are sick. I worked in a sewage treatment plant for 7 years, every day, right? I was there every day. And I never had a cold the whole 7 years I worked in Department of Corrections, right? That's a complete fallacy. And until there's documented stuff, and I don't wanna hear about Maine, and I don't wanna hear about Illinois, until it's a university study that says these farms are bad, I think it's all nonsense.
Well, first of all, the Penn State study did say, what they studied was, can you use, a sewer water, which is part of the waste stream, on fields. And what they found was that if you do, that the heavy metals are taken up by the plants. And so they recommended not to use secondarily treated sewage.
Spray ponds, when they have too much water that they can't treat it.
Right.
Perfect example is, they used to do it at Graterford. Now, being out of the department for 5 years, I don't know what Phoenix is doing now. But I know they had the spray lagoons that they sprayed on the field because they can get rid of the nitrates and stuff that are in the water. They grow the hay and they were shipping it off to the mushroom plants. Guess what happens in the mushroom plants?
Right.
What happens to them?
Well, you're growing mushrooms on it.
Yeah, and guess who's eating the mushrooms?
But here's the thing. Penn State has not taken a study of the sewage sludge itself, but they did do this study, which talked about the water. As I said before, anything that's taken out of the water is staying in the sewage sludge. So if you put sewage sludge on a field, you can be sure that plants are taking up the heavy metals and so on. And there's an example of that in our own county. The Lehighton Sewage Authority spreads sludge on a field, and then they plant reeds on it. The reeds take up the heavy metals, which they want them to do. And then it helps dry out the sludge. Then they periodically take the sludge and then take it to Hazelton to be treated, and it ends up in a landfill. But so obviously, things growing in sewage sludge are taking up heavy metals and are being.
But your statement of saying we ought to just focus on Carbon County, they're using it in Lehigh County, not a fair observation as far as clean water. Because years ago, they did a study on water from, I think it was out at Point Phillips or Nazareth area out there. They surfaced at Allentown. They put dye in the water, and that's where it finally surfaced, because they can go 30, 40 miles. So you're saying you can let them use it down there, not gonna affect them, Carbon County. That's a fallacy.
Well,
That's a fallacy.
if they use, sewage sludge is not water, so you're putting it specifically.
Well, it gets in the
on-
water.
Yeah, sooner or later.
Sooner or later, it's in the water. But my position here, and I'm not gonna speak for the whole board, this is just my opinion, I take a lot of heat from people calling, you're promoting this clean water, farmland, open space deal, and yet, your farms, as far as chairman of the Farmland Preservation Board, you're letting the farmers put this sludge on their property. Well, it's a state issue.
Right.
Until the state gets their head out of their butt, and that's what even Steph Zimmerman said to me, they're trying to create a different process to get the heavy metals out of the sludge, which would be a great thing, then it wouldn't be too bad.
It'd be an improvement.
It'd be a big improvement, but until they do that, you're sitting on a hot potato. They don't even want to talk about it in Harrisburg.
But keep keep in mind that what we're saying is,
I know what you're saying.
we're not saying don't use sewage, like, that's not in the resolution. I mean, we oppose it, but we're not saying that. What we're saying is, local governments ought to have a say in if this stuff is threatening the stream, or is threatening the neighbor's well, or threatening the health and welfare of their residents. Because what happens right now is if, a farmer uses it, and, people are harmed by it, they go to their local government, they can't do anything. And these people cannot go to court either. So they just have to endure whatever happens, and that, we don't think that's reasonable.
But Chris, that's what the board sitting here this evening, and she wants a resolution or consent for the board here about this. I don't
See, and.
feel we have the authority to pass. a
We
resolution.
we can pass the resolution and sign it, right? What they're saying is they want to take it and present it to the legislature. Just throw our vote.
I understand that, I
But,
understand.
the thing of it is, I wish you all luck in the world, I really, I do.
I don't think we have the-
But I don't think in the end that you're gonna achieve what you want.
Well, we may not, but keep in mind that we fought the Kenny's
Yeah.
pipeline for 7 years, so we don't give up very easily.
Yes, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
Chris, interject here.
Yeah, the Board of Commissioners is simply requesting the advising counsel of the Ag Land Preservation Board. And ultimately, do you guys support it? Yay, nay, why or why not? To help inform our ultimate decision on either signing a modified version, or not doing anything, just letting it die on the table.
But one thing you had said earlier that we've been sewage sludge for 9,000 is the stuff that's the least treated. Maybe we can say we recommend using the stuff that's treated better until university studies are completed. That would be a step in the right direction.
Right. I mean, there's definitely alternate language that, again, we can start from ground zero on the proposed resolution. There's nothing that we have to do.
What's that?
There are forms in the getting rid of that, and I mean, like on some of these, you can get it from almost 40 to 50 different municipalities.
Exactly.
So we're not just talking Bethlehem,
And
but they all have to answer to Tim Creighton. And DEP right away gets on it.
Oh, yeah, and that's the thing, one of the problems that yous are having down here in the lower end is people aren't following the rules.
That's right, and the state largely relies on self-regulation. That's wrong too.
No, I'll say one thing. Out there, Mr. Johnson's putting it on. I was under the assumption that only could be put on once, maybe twice a year. He puts it on 3-4 times a year, and the stench out towards their farm is enough to take your breath away for weeks.
Right.
You can put it on, use it twice, but usually have 2 different seasons of growing, 2 different crops maybe.
No, they had one crop, a hay crop.
I get that, but he also though can't put his full rate on each crop. So the company has to put on basically the one cutting of orchard grass and the second cutting of orchard grass, right, like you would go and spray chemicals. They can't put all the full rate. Just say they put down, enough for 100 units of nitrogen at full rate. They cannot put that down 3 different times. They have to put down, say, 33 pounds of nitrogen, 33 pounds of
I
nitrogen.
understand what you're trying to say, Justin,
But guess who does the testing?
pardon?
The people that do the testing are Synagro, the
Cynical, yes,
people that give it to farmers.
right.
They're the ones that do the testing, and I promise you, DEP doesn't look at it unless it's within 500 feet of a protected Class A creek. That's it.
It's a hot potato.
It is a hot potato. if you wanted to recommend that, we try to get Class A, distributed by Centerville's and distributes it. And Allentown and Bethlehem are the ones that give it to them. They give it to them and they pay them to take it. Now, there's been some instances where there was in Bethel Township, there was a farm that was going to take sewage sludge over and over and over again. And the reason they were doing it was because the treatment plant couldn't get rid of the sewage sludge. They can build it up to 6 inches. It's just not being, it's not being regulated very strongly. They rely on self-regulation both at the production of it and at the application. That's not a good idea.
Where do you stand then on the point of in Hardin County, the farmers that are using actual liquid pumped right out?
When they're using liquid pumped right out, they have to certify that it comes from residential only. So at least you're not getting benzene, heavy metals, and so on from our antibiotics from the hospital or cancer treating chemicals from the hospital. So when they do that, they have to certify that it comes from residential only.
I think that's almost an impossibility.
Well,
Because you take anybody sitting there, their drain gets plugged in their house, what do? They dump a gallon of Drano down the thing, that gets right in.
well, yes, I agree, it's not a great thing,
It's not
but-
a great thing all the way around, but
but it
I don't know
is.
if the board here wants to even put their foot in the bear trap.
We can,
I'm sort of getting tired of getting beat up all the
Wait a
time,
minute,
but
wait a minute,
I
wait a
mean, it's
minute,
part of the
wait,
game, right?
wait, so
What?
you're getting tired of getting beat up.
I do.
Okay, so if we support their resolution, you can say to these people that are hollering at you, look, we supported the resolution put forth by Safe Carbon County so that they can take it to the legislature to change things. So I make a motion to support their resolution as presented, sign it, give it to her so they can take this piece of paper to Mr. Argo and Mr. Heffley and say, look, we have the backing of
Which
22 municipalities.
So far, we have 18, we have one we haven't been able to go to, so
Which one is that?
was on, they've changed their meetings.
Oh, you don't want it. Their meeting was last night. I didn't know.
But I think the commissioner is asking this board to make a recommendation to the commissioners.
Okay, so if we support the
Yeah.
resolution,
No, table a resolution until we get some facts and figures in front of it, and then everybody can make a sound judgment.
okay, all right, I've
I'm
seen the
gonna table
resolution. I've seen the resolution, okay. We'll table it until we have.
My feelings aren't the same as your feelings, or Justin's feelings, or.
I'm on the board.
Yeah, I don't vote
No,
either.
no, I'm saying as an individual. I'd like to see some documentation for all the board members, and the next time we have a meeting, we can take up your observations, and
And I
then
like-
then we'll make a motion to go
I
forward.
like the one that you did.
Well, we don't know what you did.
Okay, all right. I'll get a copy of those. I'll get it.
Well, I'd like
I
a copy
have a-
from her, a copy of all her documentation. You're putting on your documentation here. We're sitting here, we don't know what the hell's going on, because
Okay,
we've
I thought-
never seen
I
them.
thought- I thought
So
you was-
I say table it until we see the document.
Motion to table second.
Thank you. All in favor of that? All right, so,
Okay, Dave, I'll email you a nice thick package of documentation, and I have the resolution from Patrick, I can include it.
Yeah,
send it to David, and David can send all of us a packet,
Okay.
everybody.
All right.
Not unreasonable, is it? Chris, what do you think? That's not unreasonable.
They already made the motion to table, so
Yeah.
good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have confirmation by aye.
All right.
Thank you. So be it. Any other observation that you want to bring up about it? About anything with it? So
Well,
we
just
can
so
give you
that I have it right.
an observation when we see the documents, okay?
Okay, yes.
That's
okay.
being fair,
Yeah, that's fine.
I think.
just so I have this right, The commissioners were asking for comment on the resolution. Commented that table it till more facts are
I made
figured.
I made a motion to adopt the resolution, Dick made a motion to table, so that's where it stopped. So then I seconded his motion to table.
Yeah, I'm just
Okay.
wondering if,
That's where it stops.
yeah, but with that, the recommendation for the commissioners to table the,
Yeah, that's the recommendation to the commissioners right now. We moved the table.
okay,
For, till further
Factors in
examination.
front of it.
Yeah, till further examination of the resolution.
okay. It's,
Okay. Correspondence there, David? Nothing? Anybody else wanna bring something up before we shut down the meeting? Ken? Justin? You're silent talking about it tonight, huh? Yeah. All right,
Make a motion to adjourn.
I make, no. Second. Okay, we have a second. Everybody in favor?